Joining us now, a guy who will always shoot his shot on the airwaves, Greg Wrubell. Just a guy from Alberta and one of our favorites. Welcome back to the show, Greg.
Hello, guys. Good morning.
1 month away from football.
You mean 1 day away? Practice is tomorrow. This is very.
Yeah.
I know it's practice, and I get excited, and then it's like, okay, we have a couple weeks, but it's exciting that the off season is over.
We're talking about practice.
Not
Yes,
a game.
we are.
Not a game. Not a game. Yeah. And I guess it's a good thing that no matter how old I get, and I'm getting really old, there's still a stirring, at this time of year. It feels good to know that we'll be out there watching actual football and noting alignments and formulating our own personal depth charts and memorizing numbers and all these things that go into getting ready for a season. I love it.
There's jersey math. Like, you remember
John
by the way,
on.
did this?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, so Lee Camard minus Eli Herring is whatever.
Doing that in my head all camp long. Yeah.
You did another interview this morning. I'm just reading on Twitter. Greg Wrubell says getting to 8 wins would be indicative of a successful season for BYU. You feel like that's a lot?
Well, I actually think that playing in a bowl game means you've had a pretty good season with this schedule that they put together, and 8 wins is more than 7, so it means you progressed from last year. So those are all good things. Yeah, I mean, we all want more. Not that you're setting your bar super low, but I think if you just get to the postseason, you've been a pretty good team with this year's schedule, and then beyond that would be great. Yeah.
I think we've said the goal is 8+, and then the stretch goal is like crazy, like 10.
Right, which would be crazy, and really, we'll be able to see just how crazy it is after you get through those first 4 games, right? And it's more than a 4-game schedule, but there's a lot of reasons that those first 4 games carry the weight they do. You don't have to read a whole lot about each of those programs to know that beating any one of them would be an accomplishment.
Yeah.
When you go into SEC country and beat anybody, you've done something good. And I think Tennessee is going to be better than they were last year. I think the quarterback is legit. I think that the money they spent on those coordinators means a lot. USC is always USC. Yeah, they may have underachieved, but this should be a bounce-back year for them. It's an important year for Clay Helton. Daniels is a real deal at quarterback. The wide receiver crew is scary good in terms of talent. And then Chris Peterson's got it going at Washington. And we all know that Utah is, legit. What are they picked to win the Pac-12? So, yeah, if you're any good, it's going to show up in those first 4 games. Then you can start thinking about, just how good can this team be? But let's see how this first 4 weeks go for sure.
Greg Wrubell with us on BYU Sports Nation. Going into fall camp, what are your top 2 storylines specific to BYU?
How soon does Zach Wilson look like he's Zach Wilson again? Look, he's full go. And I guess we have to also consider the fact that when he last played, he wasn't maybe full go. He was playing injured as it was. But, how soon will it look that he's got, kind of the reins off? And there's always going to be that temptation, I think, quarterbacks with that injury to maybe go faster than they should, quicker than they should, and just how quick they will let him do that, I guess, becomes a question. So that's a big one. And then I just want to see how the running back reps get parceled out a little bit, because I really do think that Lopini Katoa is legit on his own. I think it's great they've added depth with Tyson and with Emmanuel Asupa coming in, but I think Lopini Katoa kind of earned a right to be considered a go-to guy last year. We didn't necessarily maybe see him, at his full prominence. He only played 11 games and had some injuries and wasn't a starter for all those games he played. But BYU loved to get him the ball. And when he got the ball, he made good things happen. Had a really good touchdown-to-touch rate. And so how the running back situation sorts itself, I think sorts itself out will be interesting to see. And then also maybe if I could throw a third in, and these are all offensive. I know that defense should not be ignored, but I think defensively they've proven they can be solid, right? I think if you take out the 2017 year, BYU's
we've deleted it.
Expected to have a top 25, total defense, scoring defense type mentality. I think they've got that schematic mindset down. But the third thing offensively would be how tight that wide receiver group becomes, or rather how compact that rep formation becomes. If go-to guys really emerge, you got a tight group of guys that way.
I'm wondering about the receivers too, because Tanner Mangum wasn't the same dude, and so the play from that position wasn't quite what we were hoping for a year and a half there. And then we saw some progress through the air a little bit with Zach Wilson, right? So perhaps the switch at quarterback changed that. We'll see. Zach Wilson said, I believe on Media Day, that he wants to score on every drive. No doubt. Who doesn't, right? BYU was ranked in the 50s in points per drive, play, offensive efficiency. How much of an improvement do you expect this year in that regard?
Well, they should improve if they're better where they want to be, which is in explosive plays. Explosive plays will help all those numbers you just mentioned. And that's one of the things they really want to focus on this year is more chunk plays. Not that you're going to disregard establishing the run, but they need to be a little more explosive than they were. And we talk about receivers, wide receivers. We can't ignore that the main receiver has been a tight end the last couple of years. That's okay. BYU's had leading receivers be the tight end, and they've been really good in those years, not too recently, too. So I'm okay with Matt Bushman being the guy because he's the guy you want to have the ball in his hand. In fact, I think he needs to be even utilized more than he has been.
Yes.
And he's a guy that as a tight end was averaging, 16 to 18 yards a catch last year.
Led the nation among tight ends.
So he can be explosive from his position. And why, here's something to think about. BYU may not have a lot of mismatches at running back. They may not give you a lot of mismatches at wide receiver, but they do give you a mismatch at tight end. You have to exploit that, obviously, right? And they know that. Why would you not want to go to that guy? Because he's the one area on the field where he does give you a major offensive mismatch. And Jeff Grimes just raves about Matt Bushman's ball skills. And you don't have to be the world's greatest blocker to be a really productive tight end. And there are a lot of really productive NFL tight ends that aren't blocking machines, but they are pass-catching machines, and they help you win games. And I look forward to that from Matt.
Greg Wrubell, the voice of the Cougars, with us on BYU Sports Nation. Who is your fall camp MVP frontrunner at this point? Because it's watch list season.
This is a big deal for us. Is we always name a fall camp MVP. In fact, we made a watch list for this.
Really?
You want to know who's on it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's who's on it. Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, Matt Bushman, Lupini Katoa, Tyson Williams, Gunnar Romney, Zane Anderson, Diane Kawolaku. That's our watch list.
Okay, I'm going to go one offensive guy and one defensive guy. I'll go Bushman Tonga.
Oh, okay.
Kairos Tonga.
Not on your watch list, by the way.
It's harder in fall camp to see the value of the line.
But you can still blow up enough stuff and clog up enough holes to be noted. And so I'm going to watch Kairos Tonga in fall camp. Hope he has health. You just cannot have enough of it on a football team. And it's the worst thing to hear about injuries in fall. It's the worst thing to hear training camp injuries that are significant, keep guys out for weeks or seasons. It's the worst. I just, always hope and pray that they can get through a camp healthy at the most important spots. So, yeah, I just hope for health.
There's one position who's always the front runner in the fall camp MVP, though. It's the backup quarterback, because the starter is expected to be solid. And then if the backup does anything, we go, hey, look at it. So Jaron Hall is the front runner in my mind. And it's interesting to see the coaches have been kind of hinting at, let's find a way to use him and whatnot. I guess I'm a little nervous in that he's one play away. He needs to be ready, right? And focused on that. Yet he's too good of an athlete, perhaps not to use in some other capacity. How do you feel about it?
Well, I first and foremost want the number one guy to be the number one guy as long as he's healthy and productive. And Jaron Hall's time will come at some point. And not everybody has had 3 or 4 years as a starting quarterback at BYU. We've had some really good ones have just 2 and sometimes just 1. But I never want to see a guy ascend to a spot because the guy ahead of him got hurt, if the guy ahead of him is really good and deserved that spot to begin with. But I just think it's not a bad problem to have 2 athletes of that caliber at the same position right now. I know Jaron will be ready if he's called upon, but I hope Zach Wilson's ready to be the guy because we saw how special he could be last year. Yeah.
The UConn Huskies recently went independent in college football, and an idea was put out there from The Athletic this morning that they could probably show up on BYU schedules because it makes sense, but maybe BYU leverages not just a football game, but gets some basketball games in there as well. What do you think the possibility is of seeing UConn on future football and basketball schedules for BYU, given the Huskies' current situation?
Well, I think it'd be a pretty easy deal to do, wouldn't you guys? To say if you want to get us on the football schedule, let's work a basketball deal too. I don't know why UConn would be opposed to it by any stretch. It'd be great to get out there and play that program. That's a basketball program, right? Men's and women's.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, fantastic.
Unfortunately, BYU appears to be booked the next 2 seasons, 20 and 21, and then 22 has like 1 spot. So I don't know how long UConn's going to be independent, but it'd be awesome.
Well, yeah, and it could be it could be kind of a longish haul because where would they go, right? From where they are right now, you'd almost have to drop down back to where they were almost. I don't know if they join a conference at this rate.
Yeah, TBD,
is
right?
That the vibe that they would join somebody else?
At some point, I wonder. Yeah. In football, who knows, right? BYU's doing it. Can UConn sustain it? I don't know. Yeah. Matt Bushman was on the Walter Camp watch list. That's a notable one, and it's 40 players.
That's top player, right? Just
Yeah.
the top overall player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like, hey, that's pretty cool. One of 2 tight ends, one of 40 players in the country to do that. I know the watch lists are what you want to make them, but that seems like a significant preseason nod to Matt Bushman.
That's great. Yeah, it shows just how impactful he can be. And now he's one of those guys. I mean, after college, you are eligible after your junior year, to hit the NFL draft. I'd love to have Matt for 4 years, but he's the kind of player that I think has probably some pro potential, and these kind of things only help him. Yeah.
Greg, it's great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, here we go.
I can't believe it. We're 1 month away from a game. And to
Going to
Jaron's
practice
point,
tomorrow.
when the interview began, we're talking about practice.
Which is more than not talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it.
Like,
yeah.
Actual
I'm in.
practice.
I'm in. Yeah.
Actual practice.
Tomorrow we'll be there. So.
All right, man. We
Awesome.
look forward
Great
to
time.
number
Yeah, we'll
crunching.
do a lot more of this, I'm sure. Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
See you guys.